Let's now bring in Jeanine Pirro, host of Justice with Judge Jeanine, and of course, author of Liars, Leakers, and Liberals, the case against the anti-Trump conspiracy, and the perfect person to get reaction. I think off the top here, big news, the IG report is coming out next week, next Thursday. You got Andy McCabe asking for immunity. You've got this report coming on the president's birthday. All this is going on. Of course, he's heading to the G7 summit, then North Korea. Help analyze all of this for us.
Well, the good news is that the report is coming out on the president's birthday. It'll be a birthday present because we already know what's going to be in that report. Not that we've seen it, but the report is to investigate the actions of the DOJ and the FBI on the handling of the Clinton email case. We already know from Rod Rosenstein himself that everything that was done by Comey, by stepping out of his own lane, making like he's the attorney general, and then basically saying, you know, she was reckless. And she said, I mean, things that should never have been said by anyone in any role as FBI or AG. Now, the significant thing right now is that McCabe, in asking for immunity, sends a huge signal. Number one, he's asking for immunity because he is under a criminal investigation right now, so he doesn't want to appear before Senate intel.
Can I stop you 1 second?
Yeah.
Because, well, you know, the Senate's not going to jail you. The Senate committee's not going to jail you. What's he asking for immunity for? Just so he's going in front of this committee. But his problem is here. Right?
Yeah.
His problem is here. So what does one committee testimony have to do with his criminal problem?
Everything.
Then how can a committee give you immunity?
They give you use immunity, not transactional immunity. And I don't want to get into the weeds here, but it would. And he's got a very good lawyer. It would be at this point.
You think they'll give it to him, though?
Oh, I don't know.
No.
I doubt it. But here's the issue. If he wants immunity, it's to protect himself in the criminal investigation. Nothing I say here I want to be used against me. But the other issue is that he needs immunity from what? Exactly. What will he testify to? Sure. He's deputy director of the FBI. Is he going after the head of the FBI, or is he going to talk about Obama?
Sure. All right. Because you've got this new book coming out, Jeanine, regarding... hold on. Let's go to this. Because you've got this book coming out about leakers.
Yeah.
How about the jaw-dropping news that somebody from essentially the deep state, a guy who has been the director of security for the Senate Intel Committee, he has been charged, his name is James Wolfe, been there for 29 years, with lying to the FBI about leaking to reporters damaging information about the Trump administration.
Well, and that's what we've seen across the board. That's what we've seen across the board here. And, you know, I would have thought by this point we'd hear from more people being prosecuted. And by the way, what is everybody in Washington doing? He's got a girlfriend that you know, he's leaking to.
Welcome to D.C., Judge.
And Page. I mean, why don't they just do their job? We might not be in the bottom of a barrel if they did their job.
But while they have relationships going, it's jeopardizing national security. Yes. And now it's got you have a reporter, you have a guy who's had that job for 30 years leaking to a BuzzFeed reporter who's now a New York Times reporter. Right. And one theme is it damages the president. That's the theme.
That is the theme. That's the intent. You get the text messages from Strzok and Page. There was a deep state agenda to make sure that President Trump was teed up for a collusion.
There were some stories yesterday that you were being considered for Attorney General of the United States. Is that true?
Not that I'm aware of.
You saw that story, though, right?
There were a few of them, but I love it at Fox. I love what I'm doing. My book is coming out, and I'm cooking with gas here.
All right, you heard it there
first.
No,
you are. And your show's doing great, and I know the president loves to watch.
Yeah, you'll have a lot to talk about this weekend, Judge.
Oh, yes.
No doubt about that. Good to
You know what Donald Trump is going to wind up with for his birthday next Thursday?
What?
The Inspector General of the Department of Justice is going to come out with his long-awaited report on what the FBI and the Department of Justice did behind the scenes. Oh, that's an interesting shot. What they did behind the scenes regarding the Hillary Rodham Clinton email scandal. It sounds like Mr. Comey is going to get into big trouble, as will Andrew McCabe, who already got fired, and also the Attorney General, formerly of the United States, clinch.
Pretty amazing. We now have the date of this release, June 14th. So that's next Thursday. And as you said, Steve, of all days, it happens to be Donald Trump's birthday. So as you said, we're going to get a lot of information out of this report, the handling of the Clinton email investigation. But as it relates to James Comey and Kristen Saucier, of course, the ex-Navy sailor who was pardoned by Trump, he had some comments about James Comey last night with Martha McCallum, and he says a lot of pretty tough things about him. At one point, calls him a domestic enemy. Listen to this.
This is me fighting for the average American citizen. We shouldn't be subjected to a separate set of laws than Hillary Clinton or James Comey, who admitted to leaking classified information to the press to try to benefit himself, or it's the same thing with Andrew McCabe. You know, these people aren't above the law, but apparently they are. When I was in the military, I fought enemies foreign, and and now I fight enemies domestic, and that's really what I believe, Comey is. He's a domestic enemy.
I mean, and the last thing I want to go through is this whole private server, the July press conference. We've been through it back and forth. The person that put everybody in the most impossible situation is Hillary Clinton's decision on the private server and John Podesta's vulnerable email. If they had both acted responsible and that mirrored their positions, they wouldn't have had to have these crazy actions. The other thing we're going to see is the reported expanded role of Peter Strzok in both things. And we're going to possibly see more text messages that will show other people that didn't vote for Donald Trump, the bias that was built into the system, and there was really there's only one person that would have beat the drum this hard for this long to force the truth out, and it's the president. He has been relentless in his pursuit to find out what's going on.
So it's either going to be a great birthday, Steve, or maybe not so great one.
And the reason Mr. Saucier is such a good spokesman regarding the legal double standard is because he got in trouble. Remember, a couple of cell phone pictures were taken when he was 22 years old on board a sub. He was prosecuted, served time in jail, and he says there's a legal double standard, and that is why he is personally suing the federal government, and in particular, he wants to put Barack Obama in the witness chair along with Hillary Clinton and James Comey and say, how come they can break the law and they don't get prosecuted, and I took a cell phone picture and I go to jail?
So what do you all think of this? What do you think about James Comey, those comments about him being a domestic enemy, about the IG report coming out? Friends at foxnews.com. What are we going to find in that report?
By the way, the Inspector General may have a bombshell surprise for us. We're going to tell you why coming up. This report could cover much more than the Hillary email investigation. Wow, stay there. Today we learned the Inspector General intends to release his much-anticipated report on the DOJ and FBI 1 week from today. Michael Horowitz revealed the news in a letter to Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley. The IG will also testify before the Senate on the 18th. Now, we had been told that the report would cover just the FBI's investigation of the Hillary Clinton email scandal, but the IG report could be much broader, as Grassley titled the IG hearing, examining the Inspector General's first report on Justice Department and FBI actions in advance of the 2016 presidential election. Well, lots of ground to cover here with California Congressman and former Oversight Chair Darrell Issa, former U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Daniel Goldman, and investigative reporter Lee Smith, whose work we've highlighted on The Angle. Okay, Congressman, let's start with you. You've been around the block on this stuff. What gives, do you think? This is going to be a broader report. Why would Grassley title it the way he titled it?
Well, first of all, because Michael Horowitz has been around a long time. He's done a lot of investigations of the problems at the Department of Justice in a previous administration that wouldn't deal with those problems even when they were reported to Congress. So I think, first of all, that's going to be part of it, is he'll be asked questions that we know from the past he can speak on. And second of all, when you look at the endemic misconduct of Comey, including, for example, the Apple scandal, where he claimed you couldn't get information, it turned out not to be true, or the various handlings of Hillary Clinton from the very time he came in, it gets broad pretty quick, and especially when you look at other decisions that may have happened, including, obviously, the FISA warrants.
Lee, lots of things are bubbling up to the surface. This leak that came out yesterday. Now, to say that Comey was insubordinate and defied authority and that Loretta Lynch didn't handle the tarmac meeting well, if that's the...
Or even legally.
Yeah, if that's all they have, is that big bombshell, or I mean, if that's it, I don't think people are going to be disappointed by this report.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of anticipation, and maybe it has been built up too much. There is certainly an enormous amount to cover, though, and I think that may answer why Senator Grassley has titled this as well. We'll be looking at a number of things, and also if you just look, the public is keen. The public keeps hearing things. The public keeps hearing leaks. We keep hearing that this is being pushed back. They're looking at this. This is being blocked. I think they're eager to get out a number of these different things before it interferes too much with the election cycle. I think these are I think that's one of the key issues.
Daniel, one of the issues that popped up today was with Papadopoulos. George Papadopoulos' wife is saying that she believes the approaches made to him could indicate that they were trying to entrap him, use him as this way to push this investigation forward. What is your reaction to that?
Well, legally, it's not entrapment if there's any indication from an individual that they're willing to do whatever the conduct is. So I think she's using perhaps a colloquial definition of what entrapment is. And what we do know is that George Papadopoulos made some drunken comment to the Australian ambassador to the UN, and that spurred further conversation.
Initially, it was reported, though, Dan, that he knew that there was lots of emails out there, Clinton emails, but then they backed off from that and said that they had dirt on Hillary, right? So that story had shifted. That's a big difference. Someone has dirt on Hillary, and someone knew that there were emails that were hacked and were going to be released.
The only thing I will say is, having spent 10 years in the Department of Justice and having had cases that were reported on by the news media, and no offense to you, Lee, but generally speaking, about 50% was right. And it's not necessarily the journalist's fault. Sometimes the sources are a little too far removed and they don't have as much of the information as you would like. So let's not jump to conclusions as to what actually was in that meeting. I think the broader point here is that there was some indication that Papadopoulos knew that Russia had information that he was trying to get access to. And at that point, it is absolutely incumbent upon the FBI to investigate that, to see if there's a national security risk of any sort.
So you don't think anything happened before that period of time? You don't think that anything of these text messages, December 2015, they were looking at Trump and they're talking about the lures inside, putting lures inside. Again, we don't know really what that was about, that one unredacted text. But that's just some weird stuff. Again, maybe it's just all innocent and they were having lures all over the place. I mean, I'm sure they do, but something about this just sticks in my craw. I want to play something for you about the informants, because Kevin Brock, who actually supervised the rewriting of the rules on informants for the FBI, joined us last week, the week before, on The Angle. Let's watch what he said.
An FBI agent can't go out and just open up a source and gather information willy-nilly. They've got to abide by the guidelines, and the guidelines are very specific, particularly in counterintelligence investigations, and even more particularly when you are directing your source towards an American citizen.
The guy who rewrote the rules, Congressman.
Well, and that's why when he said, it's incumbent, that's hogwash. The fact is, every single political campaign, Senate, House, presidential, they're all looking for dirt. They want it wherever they'll get it. They pay for it. They hire attorneys.
Hillary paid for the dossier, for goodness sake.
They hire law firms to obfuscate
is she being investigated?
The whole thing. If the Department of Justice / the FBI investigated every time there was a credible attempt to get dirt, no matter where the source, you'd be investigating hundreds and hundreds of...
But come on, it obviously is different if it's the source of the information is a foreign country than if the source of the information is someone within the country.
A vague allegation that there may be something is very different than, well, we have Russian intelligence. And let's remember, in this case, at some point, the Department of Justice knew that, in fact, the DNC and Hillary Clinton were part of the source of that.
Long after this.
Lee?
No, I'm very
long before the election.
I'm very uncomfortable, actually, with the idea that the FBI is running agents and opening investigation based on what a campaign team member says and is overheard in a bar. I think that's peculiar. I think if we were to go out to a bar and have a conversation and the FBI, and I'm on a campaign or you're on a campaign, and the FBI says, let's run an investigation on that guy, I think that's not what we want to see the FBI doing.
That's a pretty low threshold for opening an investigation, don't you think? I mean, I see what Lee is saying there.
Well, look,
especially during a charged political season with this guy's like a minor dude. Like, he's not any like big fish.
But that's why I think you got to recognize the investigation did not start.
We don't know when it started. We don't really know when it started.
I'm not talking about the timing. Yeah. I'm saying I would bet a lot of money that when they started this investigation, they had no idea who was involved. They didn't think, I'm sure, at the beginning that it went to Donald Trump or went anywhere that high. They were following a lead of a very suspicious and specific statement, is my guess, that George Papadopoulos gave to somebody else. And they're going to chase that down, as you would want them to do, I think, to make sure that nothing nefarious is going on.
Did that Bill Priestap trip to London in May of 2016, does that seem...
I think it's unclear right now exactly where that is, but I will say that, like, we don't know whether or not what kind of mechanism that this was transmitted to the FBI. It suggests it was irregular, so the idea that it came through the State Department is an issue.
All right, fantastic conversation. It's